So I'm a UX designer, and if you're a designer as well, you might have come across this concept or this term called design thinking. Now, I just want to be clear before I begin with the main subject of this video that systems thinking, which is the subject of this video, and design thinking have absolutely nothing in common, or they're absolutely not the same at all, and also they're not the same. Okay, so I just want to preface this before I proceed. So now, first things first, what exactly is systems thinking? Now, systems thinking is a concept or a way of looking at this world, or whatever you want to call this. It's not a method or a methodology. Basically, it's a way of, let's say it's a concept, okay, where every individual element, now you might call this thing, you might call this component, it depends on whatever profession you belong to or environment you belong to. So some people might call this component, so anything, okay, individual atom or anything you want to call this individual, okay. uh, this is the concept where every individual element has a relationship between with other elements, and the understanding of if individual and relationships and the environment together, which is called system. And now this has other implications as well. This is called systems thinking. Well, understanding or abstracting mental models of any person or any concept as systems is called systems thinking. What are the implications of this? So the thing is that every individual element, okay, if you take it away from the first implication is that there is a system, okay, and there is an element or a component or a thing, and if you take that thing away from the system, it is not the same, or it is, well, the thing is that it will act differently, okay, both the system and the thing. So that's the idea behind a system. Now, it's also that the second implication of this theory or this concept, or whatever you want to call it, is that it's also useful in understanding the cause and effects of any trend or thing in this world or any concept in this world. Okay, now how is this useful as a designer? Well, let's back up for a minute. Now, let's say if you want to understand what let's take the example of Canva, and I learned this from a friend of mine, whose name is Hugh. His name is Dak, by the way. If he's watching the video, props to you, man, for sharing this example. But this is a good example, okay? Take the example of Canva, okay? So Canva is basically, if you don't know, it's a drawing application, or a design application that makes it easy for non-designers to create posters, certificates, social media posters, and basically design anything and everything, digital stuff. Okay, so without being an actual digital designer. So that is what Canva is. Now, it's a free application. You can also go to the website and try it out. Now, in this application, while the designers were designing it, one thing they figured out is that because they're designing it, the main target audience was social media marketers and business people. They're not artists, okay? If you give them too many options, one of the things that they found out from research is that okay, so the business people cannot handle a color palette. Now, if you don't know what color palette is, if you've used any kind of drawing applications or design applications, you might have, if you open the color palette, you would see a huge stream of color. So if you choose a color, it basically chooses from a bucket of color palettes, ranging from a dark shade of red to a dark shade of green to a dark shade of blue, and everything in between. So I don't know if I'm making this complicated. So that's what color palette is. I hope that I hope that's clear. So because people, especially business people, find this concept like daunting to use a color palette, what Canva did is they created a huge collection of color palettes. Okay, pre-selected or pre-made color palettes. So for business people, they don't have to go and choose a stream of colors for all their businesses. So for example, if you're creating a logo for if you're creating a logo for, let's say, not logo, let's say creating a poster for a indie horror film, most likely you will need something like a color palette of black and red color. Now I don't want to get into the why and everything, because that will just drag the length of this video forever. Now red and black color are extremely important. Now the thing is that if you put all of these, if you put red and black and maybe a bunch of other colors like accent colors together, if somebody is a filmmaker, an indie filmmaker, and I'm not really a poster designer or anything, I can use Canva to, like, instead of spending time to come up with color palettes and trying to understand individual elements, spending time so much time for it, Canva decided, okay, well, we're going to create color palettes. Okay, now I don't want to dive deep into this. Now this makes the job easy because, well, what they understood is that their the mental model or the way of thinking of a business person is that they don't think in terms of, well, colors, because they don't want that. And this could also be explained. Okay, let's say for example you open up a flight simulator game on App Store. There's a game called, I think it's called X11. I played that game a lot myself personally. And there's also a Microsoft flight simulator. Okay, now if for those people who don't know, before pilots actually drive a real flight, they are given pilot training on a simulator, a digital simulator, before they can actually drive in. Well, let's say hope they don't, but before they drive and crash actual real flight. So before they do that, they're actually given a flight simulation lesson. So in this let's say in this environment versus a 3-year-old kid who's really has a fascination for, let's say, aeroplanes, or someone like me who I really like traveling on a flight. But if you give me a flight simulator game like Microsoft Flight Simulator or something straight from Boeing or Airbus, okay, a game from Airbus or Boeing, which is meant to replicate the actual environment and system, I would freak out and I wouldn't use that system because, man, there's too much of complications. Versus if you take the example of if you take the example of pilot, and if you make things too simple, like just basically pressing one button to switch on the, let's say, the acceleration, and one button for brake, and one button for takeoff or something. If you just give a pilot 3 buttons and ask them to learn flight this way, that's not the real way things work, because you're gonna piss a pilot off, because that's not how real world works. So you need to understand how people think. Now, as I mentioned, systems thinking has a couple of implications. The first one being that if a element or a thing or a component in a system, in an environment, with this relationship is taken out and put into another environment, or with another set of relationships, with another set of components, it will react differently, and they're not the same, both to the system and the component itself. They're not the same. So therefore, every individual element matters. And, well, if you say that, okay, well, understanding the system will explain everything, Well, you need to understand the components and the relationships and the environment to understand the full system, and that's how you understand systems. So this might sound like I'm just rambling a bunch of stuff, so let me also explain these with other set of examples so you can understand. So I've already listed two examples. The first one is the example of Canva. The second example that I listed is the example of Flight Simulator. Now, the thing you need to understand is that every individual element or step in your process of developing an app, a project, a company, whatever it is, every individual discovery is a step or a component. Why that happens or the motivation behind it is a different discovery. Now, those are individual components. Now, what you can also argue, okay, different people like, let's say if you're creating a marketplace application, as a designer, you can be, let's say, you can be a designer who wants to sell on a design marketplace where you sell, let's say, templates of Photoshop posters, and graphics and stuff like that. So let's say it's a graphics marketplace. So if you're creating a marketplace site, so you will have a bunch of sellers and you will have a bunch of customers. Now, the thing you need to understand is sellers and customers. Now, what are their motivations, their relationships with every individual thing? Now, every individual customer is motivated by different set of things. Now, they are influenced by the economy or the amount of money that they have or the politics that they follow, or anything and everything is connected. So understanding those mental models requires you to understand different systems, and understanding systems is not as simple. If you just understand one component, well, one of the things that will happen is you will have a very vague understanding or maybe an incomplete understanding of the system. Now, when you have an incomplete understanding of the system, every individual element is not necessarily or inherently true or false. Or what I can say is, this is where it differs from this concept called postmodernism. And if you're wondering if I'm a postmodernist or anything like that, I am not. And I'll talk about my opinion or my take on postmodernism in a different video. I am not a postmodernist, just to be clear. All right. For those people who know what I'm talking about, well, no, I'm not a Marxist. I'm not any of those endorsers. Although it might sound like I'm endorsing any of these ideologies, I do not. Now, let's also get to a couple of other things or areas that how you can use this concept, if I can say. So there is this methodology based on this way of thinking called soft systems methodology, introduced by a British-born researcher, if I can say, called Peter Checkland. And in his methodology, which is called soft systems methodology, and you can go Google for it. There are videos. He actually has written a book, and it's quite it was actually taught to me in the university. So basically, this methodology tries to explain, tries to help you to understand messy or wicked situations. So what do you mean by messy or wicked situation? So let's say, for example, the cause and relationship or the cause and effect is not easily understandable or is not directly correlated. That methodology helps you to understand. Okay, now this is not a method, this is a methodology. All right, now so what exactly is this used for? Is soft systems methodology used for? I just described it, but I want to talk about soft systems methodology in another video in detail. What exactly and how is this? What this methodology entails. But as of right now, if you're interested, you can take a look at that methodology. It's pretty interesting. How it could be useful? Okay. Well, let's say, for example, if you have a company and You're doing everything that you're supposed to do according by the you're going by the books, or you're doing everything that your investors are asking you to do, everything your customers are asking you to do, and nothing is happening. Well, why is that? Well, because you're taking, maybe because, well, you're taking an approach that you don't fully understand the full system. And understanding the different parts of the system and how they influence each other is called systems thinking, and that's a very useful methodology. It's called soft systems methodology. Go check it out. I might not make a video on how to use soft systems methodology, because that will be a really long video, and there's actually a book, and that's what the book actually tries to explain, so you might want to check that out. But yeah, that's a reference for you to take on from this video. I hope you guys found this video useful. If you did, please be sure to subscribe to this channel and like this video, because YouTube algorithm really likes that. And I shall see you guys in another video very soon. Bye bye.